Man, this video is late.
The house took a little while.
The way that this place was when we first got back here. Woo!
There was not as much done as we had hoped.
We'll definitely get to that.
But this story begins in 2020 when Honey's dad decided to finally utilize the land that he's had for like 40 years out here in Turkey to build an apartment for the whole family. And this is the story of the Tomatoes' first home.
When we met, America and Turkey had a bit of a issue with their relationship, and I got sent back and we did long distance for about a year and a half. So I did go to live in Mexico for a little while, but it's irrelevant.
Cancun days.
In 2018, we finally decided, hey, we should get married because we love each other and want to be together.
So I moved over here. I quit my engineering job in Florida, came over here to live with you, and we moved into your parents' apartment together.
After we got married, even though Keenan moved to Turkey, we still wanted to apply for a green card for the chance of getting to live in America together as well. But then COVID happened.
Living with parents during COVID was not the business. We decided to fix up the farmhouse
And inherited the responsibility of 32 chickens, 8 ducks, 4 geese, 4 rabbits, 2 dogs, and also all the cats Turkey could throw at our way.
Yes.
During the pandemic, my dad decided to utilize this land, but as you can see from the video, there wasn't much to work with here. Just the foundation of this house took about a year and a half to get it ready to have the concrete and the metals put in so that, the house doesn't fall. At the end of 2020, the news came in that I got my green card.
So in the summer of 2021, we moved to America. We went there and got to see my family and learned a little bit more about Northern California, but quickly it became clear it was not exactly what we wanted to end up doing going forward.
No, I've lived as an immigrant by myself since I was 14. I've lived in Cambridge, I lived in London, I lived in Orlando, I lived in Cancun, and I can confidently say that the only time I felt like an outsider was in North California. Other than Tomatoes' family and the wonderful, incredible friends that I've made over there wasn't many things that made me happy.
Your mental health took a huge hit. The cultures just do not align very well. Seeing her mental health deteriorate so much, we wanted to take a little 3-week vacation back here to Turkey for some mental rehabilitation.
But we quickly found out, like the day after getting back here, that we really, really preferred the vibes over here.
And the food.
So we decided that we should move back here to Turkey.
This was when the whole frame of the house had been coming together, but up until that point, we were not planning on living here. So this is Honey's parents' home being built. Technically, this is supposed to be for all of us, their family, me and Honey, and our brother. So it's supposed to be, I think, 3 stories. But that's the floor that we don't want, that they're still building. And between how crazy expensive America and California is to live in, we realized that Space Tomato Gaming was something that we could do full time and support ourselves here. So we decided to make the move permanent.
And we found a 4-story townhouse for about $320 per month.
Now 4 stories is great, but it was an old home. It was old and it was kind of falling apart, to be honest. But it was the only available rental in the entire city because at that time the Turkish economy was not doing well.
What do you mean at that time?
Right. Oh my God. Still.
By the time we moved into our old house, my parents had been asking us to live here in this family apartment for since they started making it.
Initially, this was actually supposed to be a car park, but they were happy to turn it into an actual house on this floor and extend it from 2 rooms to kind of splitting it up into 3 rooms so we could have a studio and keep doing Space Tomato Gaming here.
About a week ago, Keenan and I decided that we do in fact want to live here, and we decided to make a home out of this place. What do you think about that? Right. Summer 2023, the frame of our house was completed, the walls were up.
We had put in the order for the kitchen and decided on a lot of the big things for the house at that time before we ended up going back to the United States and CitizenCon.
Our furniture in our old house was perfect for here, so we weren't going to have to buy much furniture or do much decorating because we already had everything.
And while we were planning on staying in the US for a while at that time, in November of 2023, there was actually a hurricane-like storm, first of its kind, that hit this part of the Black Sea, which completely wrecked our house. Eventually we realized we needed to come back here and get a really good idea of what had happened. So we came back in February and it was not good.
While the other house was completely ruined, this house wasn't as further along as we assumed it was going to be. The only things that were completed were the floors and the windows, but everything else was still to be done. This obviously lit a fire under our ass. Just met up with our interior designer to get our kitchen made. This is what it looks like right now. This is where the island's gonna go. This is a tomato. Now we're gonna go pick out our paints. We have to really rush this stuff, unfortunately, but you know, also kind of fortunately. Let's go.
And also the community really stepped up to help us there.
Our community took care of everything that had to do with our computers and equipment, so we didn't have to take time away from completing this house to focus on those. We ordered all of our computer parts and got back to work in the moldy house.
And finishing this house was a journey. Our kitchen had actually been designed for a while at this point, so we took this time to start telling them the materials and the paint and the colors that we wanted to do.
We first started with getting every single thing corrected. There was no project manager that was hired for this house. You can only assume how many things were done, not up to standard, not up to code.
Contractors. We love you.
Along with all of the things that weren't done properly, there was also a giant hole on our floor.
We hadn't wanted a fireplace, but we just kind of showed up and suddenly there was a massive hole drilled in the floor and they said, well, you got to do something with it.
So we got a fireplace. We do like the one that we got though.
Yeah, but besides that, there was also just a lot of moving things over here.
It's been raining so bad. The fridge is back there along with the counters.
The refrigerator, the fireplace itself, a lot of the desks and stuff.
My favorite is the bathtub. The bathtub fit through the doors barely. Oh, the doors.
Right.
Finding my inner peace. Nope. In January, while we're still in the States, the carpenter that my parents hired to do our doors sent us about 10 door options. So we picked this door. We asked them to make it in white. In April, we got the news that our doors were put in. So we rushed over here. I'm so glad you got the first reaction to those doors.
Yeah, you did not like those as soon as you saw them. Day 23.
Oh, they put a door here.
Oh.
I've seen that.
We have doors. You don't like them? They didn't really come out how that we were expecting.
So I called the carpenter over and I was like, hey, these are not the doors I ordered. Can you come back so we can talk about what happened? I was really calm and I assumed that he'd be able to fix it. This carpenter came into our house ready to intimidate us and basically bully us into accepting the doors he had put in. He confessed at the end of our yelling match that he basically just did whatever he wanted to do and he assumed it would look better. I told him to remove the doors within the next week, and if he didn't, I would take a hammer to them. This all meant that we'd have to move into this house without doors. The skeleton of our kitchen got put in while we were making our bathroom stuff, and then we planned for our appliances and the rest of our kitchen and all of our light fixtures to get done all in the same day. What a day that was.
That was an intense day.
Probably the only time I'll hug our island like
It's so big.
Here we are, trying to install this vent ourselves because the contractors who did it didn't know what the height was.
and told me that this was the standard, but it was the minimum.
The absolute lowest standard, which I'm not a short person.
We did consider our house complete once 90% of our kitchen was done.
But at this time, it was finally time to move in. Construction had been mostly completed. We just needed to do some plastering holes, finishing up paint, connecting outlets and all that kind of stuff. And we got the house ready to be shoe-free.
By the time we were ready to move in, there was still no water, there was still no electricity, there was still no internet over here. So as an emergency solution, since we had to move out of the old house due to my mold allergies, we moved our studio to my parents' spare bedroom, which is being used by my brother who's going through a transitional period right now.
So we went all the way back around from 2019 back into her parents' apartment. We made it work. We bought a bunch of water from the nearby grocery store, brought it here, and used that to clean our whole house because we didn't have water yet.
That was fun.
The nice thing was that we got to do this all together, and it was actually a really good time being able to do all of that as a team.
Yeah. We have experience from the farmhouse on how to make situations work.
We didn't have any chickens this time though. But eventually we did start getting all of our stuff moved in here. We had a furniture company that helped us with the couches and the table. We moved everything else ourselves, but you know, that makes it feel that much better, honestly.
In the beginning of June, we moved here. When we moved in, we were mainly focused on getting the living room ready and our bedroom ready since we were still working from my parents' apartment. After arguing with the government and my family back and forth for a bunch of months, we finally were able to get internet wired here last week.
It's been about 3 weeks since we've moved in,
About a month, 3 weeks, yeah.
and we're just getting the internet wired today. Well, we think at least that they're just wiring it. They're not even
Fine.
connecting it yet. They're just wiring it.
Starlink, where are you?
Never doubt me.
And after getting it connected last week, we are basically just finishing up getting the studio, bathrooms, and our guest room done so that we can finally kind of just sit back and focus on our work again. And us.
And
like
us.
try to relax a little bit.
In part 3 of this series, you'll be able to see a complete before and after of this house, how we moved in, and how we got our dog Tommy here, as well as how we got a new puppy out of nowhere.
Yeah, that showed up out of nowhere. A big shout out to the community and our garden, our community on Discord. You guys don't know how big a deal it was to have you with us throughout this. Thank you so much just being there to talk to. For those of you who reached out to us, asked us how things were going, wished us well. Moving is not an easy process, and I am forever sympathetic to anybody going through it.
See you in part 3.
Bye. Over here, there's a hole in the fence over here. It can crawl up there. Turtle friend.
Here you go, buddy. Enjoy.
What a lovely defense mechanism.